Hello, my name's Dino. I'm going to show you from a first-person view how to set up your vacuum pad system. We're going to go through kind of what comes in the system. There are different options for you to purchase, as in this is a double rotating mount with the double swivel mount attachments. Including with this pad, these are 8 total pads, 2 sets of the same pad, assortment of fittings, a jig for marking offsets I'll explain later, and some sliding T-nuts. I'll explain those as well that come in your pack. You have your pump, your pedal, and a filter and regulator for the pump. Over here is the length of hose. You get a very long length of hose, as well as a very long length of gasket for your vacuum pads. So those, you cut them as you need them to kind of reserve as much of this as possible so you can set it up just the way you want it. Now, going in here from the start, we're going to say some useful tools to have is a 14 millimeter wrench or a crescent wrench. You can adjust even better. Number 3 Phillips. And then I have a razor blade or a good pair of scissors to cut the hose or cut the gasket at the position that you want it to be cut. So as we start, we're going to start always from the pump. This pump will be set at your table wherever you want it underneath. Make sure there's plenty of room around this because this tends to heat up and you don't want it in a very confined, closed space. It needs air to breathe so it doesn't overheat. Now, with the regulator, very simple. You just thread it on to the open port in the front. You can use some PTFE tape on there, and you're going to thread this on and use a wrench to tighten it. I believe this is a 15 mil wrench fitting here, or with a crescent wrench you can just adjust, clamp it, and tighten it nice and tight. And then here is where all the magic starts from. So right here we have a push connect fitting. All of our fittings in the vacuum pad systems use push connect fittings. I have a sample of a hose to cut so I can show you kind of how this all works. Now, the way this works, it gets pushed into the fitting nice and tight. You always want every end that you cut to be pretty square. You don't want to cut it at an angle. You want to keep it as square as possible. That ensures that it's a good seal. Now, if you ever were to remove this hose, what you're going to do is the black fitting that is on here, you're going to pull that back and then pull the hose in the opposite direction. And that should remove like that. If for some reason it's really stuck in there, I tend to twist the hose a little bit, pull this ring. It just takes a little bit of back and forth to get them out. But that is how push connect fittings work. Now, from wherever our pump will stay, you have an on button in the back. So you can mount this pump anywhere you like because you can mount it upside down, everything. This is a oil-free pump, so you can mount this in any direction. You don't have to worry about it sitting upright. As this runs, our first stop is going to be into the back of our pedal. Now, at the back of the pedal, you have 2 fittings. You're going to plug into one or the other, depending on if your pedal works. Sometimes there's a variation between the two, but the 2 fittings, you will plug into one and use, like I said, something like a good pair of scissors or a razor blade where you would set it on the table and cut it. I will use a good pair of cutting scissors to get a nice clean cut and push into one of the fittings. From there, the other fitting, you can take the hose and run now to your vacuum pads. The way this pedal works is that this pump will always continuously run, consistently keeping a vacuum. The moment you press and hold the pedal down is when it will release the vacuum. So only when engaging your foot in this can you release the material. Thus, anytime you're not touching this, there's always a vacuum holding your parts. Now, from this part going into the rest, what we have here are rotating mounts. This one has the swivel adapter on top of it where you can rotate your pad 360 degrees, and you would mount your pad right onto those points with your screws supplied in the kit. There's that number 3 Phillips. You put them in through the holes, tighten them down, secure them, and that's how those work. Now, if you ever wanted to remove this, you can just unscrew the nut on the bottom, remove the washer in between, and remove this part and just use it as so, where you can mount your pad straightly to this so it won't swivel on you if you wanted a nice fixed pad on this mount. Now these mounts, you loosen these side nuts just a little bit. You don't need to go too far, and it locks in different positions. So from a full 180 and every 22.5 degrees in between. The bottom side also has 2 brass threaded inserts and other openings. I'll show you what those are used for here in a moment. There's your rotating mount and your swivel adapter, and this is the part of it. If you want to save that for later, don't use those parts if you end up not using it. Now, with one fully assembled here, I will start with the top. The vacuum pad gets a gasket put into every single one. I will show you how that gasket gets set up and how you set up your pads. Every pad that comes will be just like this, with a valve in the center and an open in the back, where you're going to take out of your fittings the straight fitting like this. You will thread them in. They're already pre-threaded into the plastic. So you're going to take these, tighten them down with that 14 millimeter wrench. And all you have to do is go until you get it really just nice and snug. You don't need to dig it too hard. It's already threading and sealing itself. Now, for the gasket itself, you're going to take the full length of gasket. Don't go and just cut a length. You want to keep as much of this intact for any time you might need to repair a gasket if you damage it. You just want to keep a full length. So I tend to start in the middle, and I work my way pushing all the way around with this gasket. When I get to the end, I like to leave a little bit, about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch past where this would meet, snip that. And then the purpose of that is so when you get to this end and you were to set that last part in to there, you can massage and push them into each other, mating them without any glue. There's no glue needed, so that once everything gets pressed down, it'll seal itself. So that's how you attach the gasket. You can attach it to whatever pad you want to be using at that time. Say there's a pad that you might not ever need to use, but you keep it as a spare on the side. Don't need to cut a gasket for it then. Always keep a long length of this just in case, but there's always long lengths of hoses and gaskets you can purchase on the site. So with this being set up on here, you put those 1/4 screws through, tighten them down nice and snug. Now on the back side, you have really 2 types of options of mounting this. You have the option of drilling holes into your table and putting a screw through the bottom of the table. That is what this jig was designed for. It's an L shape, as you can see here. And if you were to put it on the edge of your table, these holes are offset, the same offset of these. So you mark, take it away, and drill your holes to fit a 1/4 screw through. So really you could drill a 5/16 holes and then take threaded inserts, put them into there, or just leave them open and thread from the bottom up. Now, if you were to thread from the bottom up, you have to thread into the part that has the brass insert, because that's the spot that will grab the screw. Now, if you wanted to set these threaded inserts into your table and thread down, you have multiple holes on the underside to mount to. So if you want to do some fine adjustments, say I only want to do 2 holes right here, then we'll do those 2 holes. You have multiple adjustment points to mount here, 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 kind of moving it forward and back to fit whatever position you want it to be. You could also, if you have an apron on your table, you could also do it on that apron. Now, my favorite and preferred method to do this, that way you get the best strength out of the system, is using what is called a aluminum extrusion there. I have one under my table. I have a link on my website to a site where you can purchase those. Now, these pads, these rotating mounts, were designed for a 15 series extrusion. The outermost 2 are the same width of the channel of these 15 series extrusions. The reason for that, then we could use these sliding T-nuts. The benefit of these, you hold them here on the back side, and then you'll take those same Phillips screws, put them through your hole, and thread them into your part here. You're going to snug them up, and then once that's all set, you'll take your Phillips, kind of tighten them up, and now you'll be done with something like this. Now with this, we can go and slide into the extrusion of the table, and if you happen to tighten it up too much, take your Phillips and loosen it just a hair. That way it slides in. That one's a little too tight, so we'll loosen that just a hair. That way I can slide this. So it's got a bit of a friction, which is nice, but you can always tighten them to secure them in one spot or loosen them just slightly if you want to be able to move them on the fly. And then from here, when you loosen these nuts, these threaded knobs on the side, you can now rotate your pad exactly where you want. If you had the rotating swivel adapter on there, you can then also rotate this 360 degrees, which is nice. So with this being said, this is mounted into here. You could also do that with the same and have two of them on a nice fixed rail, solid to your table, nice and flat. So that's why I love using these aluminum extrusions on my workbench. Now going back here to the vacuum pads and the fittings, you get a whole assortment of screws, fittings, so that you have kind of a extra supply of things that you might need or not need. So if you have things left over, there's no worry. They're meant to be some spares, so you use it as you like for whatever you are going to set up for your own system. So that right there is the whole vacuum pad system in a nutshell. I would say now coming from the pedal, like I said, we go right underneath these vacuum pads and into that port. So if I were to connect one pad to that pump, this is what it would look like. Right from the pump to the pedal and right to the pad. Very simple. And then you would be essentially ready to go. Now, adding a little length to those parts so that when you put your pump underneath your bench and you have your pedal, you'll be able to move it kind of wherever you want to play with it and work with it. So give it a little bit extra room there. This is just a demonstration to show how the connection works. Now, if you ever run into an issue when setting this up that it's not working for the pedal, what you're going to want to do is remove the hoses and swap them. So this hose ran to the top, run it to the bottom. And then that should work. If for some reason that does not work, then you can remove this filter fitting, take one fitting, move it to the other, then try that, and then flip those if it's still not working. Basically, the pedal will work the way it's supposed to. Some do not have the same configuration. So playing with those fittings, you'll find the right setup that makes the pedal work if it doesn't work right out of the box. So that is your vacuum pad system in a nutshell to set it up. Very simple, very easy to pack this all up, put it in a box, take it to the job site, and also work with it and set it up here on your workbench in the shop. So I hope you enjoyed this, and this kind of went over everything. If you have any questions, always reach out to the support email, which is support@kourostools.com, to help with anything that you seem to be running into any issues, but it should be all pretty straightforward. Talk to you later.